If when you were 10, you were mugging up what you were being taught in your history textbooks and found that you didn't remember most of it 10 years later, well, then you need to meet our special guest on the program today, among the world's youngest historians. And yes, he's all of 10 years old. I'm Barkha Dutt, and our very special guest today is a young man. I feel like I should call him a young man because he certainly knows more history than me. Zach Sangeet, who is also the best-selling author of The World's History in 3 Points. Like I said, I pretty much don't remember what I studied in history in school, and I studied history all the way to class 12. Welcome, Zach. Are you really 10 years old?
Yes, I am 10 years old.
And when did you sort of develop or become aware of this sort of keen, extraordinary interest in history?
This, in fact, is a very interesting story. It starts when my mother comes back from a trip to Paris, from when my parents come back from a trip to Paris, and my mother is showing me the pictures of her trip on the iPad. One of the pictures she shows me is a picture of the Mona Lisa in the Louvre Museum. I was a 6 year old boy at that time, a very curious one. And I immediately went on. I got some books, went on the internet. I began researching about this, and that is when I got really intrigued about it. I started studying about things surrounding the Mona Lisa, like, for example, the Renaissance and Leonardo da Vinci, other Renaissance artists.
And
And
you were
this is why
six, and you were
and
six when you were doing all this.
I was 6 years old, yes.
And you were actually able to, were you reading like children's books that told you about history, or were you reading adult books?
I'll be frank, I was reading whatever ebooks or books that was lying around, just sentences which I could understand.
So tell us
I,
something about the Mona Lisa that you think is not commonly known.
did you know that Leonardo da Vinci pulled around this painting with him wherever he went?
I didn't know that.
It
And,
was
and
his most.
was it
Go
like his
ahead.
lucky charm? Was it like his lucky charm?
I think it was his lucky charm, and this is what differentiates him from artists so many hundreds of years later.
And do you have a lucky charm? Do you have a Mona Lisa that you take around with you wherever you go?
I think my Mona Lisa is my interest for history. And of course, my two newly published books, World History in 3 Points and More World History in 3 Points.
So hold those up, hold those up. When did you write? Hold up the books that you wrote. When did you write a book? When did you decide that the history of the world could actually be told in 3 points? And what are those 3 points?
So, in fact, this begins this small story when, after my parents showed me the Mona Lisa and I start to get interested in history, my teachers begin to complain about my motor skills, and that is why I begin writing history.
What do you mean they complain? What do you mean the teachers
Uh,
complain?
my handwriting skills were very bad at that point of time. I did not know how to hold a pencil strong enough, and so I was told to begin writing essays. And by this time, I had already developed a pretty big perspective on history. So I decided to begin writing history. This is when I learned that the usual books around you would take hundreds and thousands of pages to get to the single key fact. And like that, I started evolving many of my own processes to make it much easier to write. The first one being the situation, complication, and solution, which is a method often used by story writers. And then I soon found out about another 3 points method, which I call the past, the present, and the future. I
And
would,
explain that.
I would like to give you an example with one of my most favorite philosopher, Georg Hegel. And the past would be what is the ideology before Hegel or what is there before him. And that was that the past was a bad age, and the present is the most evolved age in terms of technology, in terms of society, and the present is the best. The next
So
point, yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
the next point is what Hegel changed, and he changed it and said, we can, this might be true, we have the best tech, but we can take elements from the past and make the present future, like elements from ancient India about living in communities to be more together in the present. And the last point is the future, which is how Hegel would impact everyone. And I think an example for that would be me myself, who believes that this is a great finding and that I want to actually put this into, I want to teach everyone how this would work. I hope so.
So I think I'm feeling a bit overawed listening to you because I think I studied Hegel when I was in class 11 in political science at school, and concepts of sort of the greatest good for the greatest number of people and so on. But I was significantly older than you. Uh, you say your teachers complained about your motor skills. What do those same teachers have to say today?
Well, after my book was published, I went to show one of my old primary teachers, and she was fascinated because she herself used to see my interest in history. And yeah, she bought her own copies and she got it signed by me. In fact, it makes my heart it's heartwarming when I see this.
But surely you understand that your mind is obviously developed years ahead of other children your age. Surely you get that, right? Does that make you feel chuffed and cool? Or do the other kids sometimes look at you as if you're geeky and nerdy?
I think it's a mix of both. More than being ahead of other kids, I think personally that it's just that I faced a defining moment more early on in life, which was the Mona Lisa, and that has helped me find out my interest early. And yes, other kids do kind of look up to me. I hope so. I hope so. And yes, they also think I'm nerdy and geeky. Yes.
What about the Mona Lisa fascinated you so much? What do you think it was?
Well, the thing is that when I'm a 6-year-old boy, I noticed that this same painting which my mother has shown me is on people's bags, on mugs. Why is this? Why is this small painting this tiny painting under bulletproof glass? Why is it like this? And I found that it was kind of like a hidden quest, a gem to most. So that is, I think, what intrigued me.
Tell me which, I know you've also done some work during the pandemic. You spoke about how, there was a plague that perhaps not so many people know about, the Justinian pandemic. So talk a little bit about that.
The Justinian's plague was a plague in Constantinople, and it came in from Egyptians who were, it is believed to have come in from Egyptian trade, and there were rats inside the ships while they were trading, which came over here. And in fact, what I find really interesting is that the Justinian's plague is a great example for why we should learn history. And let me give you an example. During the time of the Justinian's plague, people used this type of bird mask or a mask with a beak on it. And the reason for this is because the beak could be stuffed with herbs and garlics, which they thought would keep the diseases away. And when I think about it now, you feel that, wow, even our modern N95s are shaped somewhat like a beak. And then you can see that. So the Justinian's plague I think is a great example for why history is, which should show how history can work its magic. Yes.
So do you follow modern news? Do you follow like how history has become such a battlefield for modern day, not just India but everywhere in the world? Do you follow that? And when you follow that, when you see sort of fights over where there was a mosque, where there was a temple, who came first, who built what first, who brought what down, who was a good guy in history, who was a bad guy in history, do you follow all of those debates?
I think as a historian, it is very important to look into biases, to look into different opinions, debated topics. And that is how, in fact, an interesting thing is that before World History in 3 Points, my idea was actually sort of to look into things which are hidden in plain sight. What you Things like this which have biases. So because of that, I'm trying to unveil, remove the thin
Like,
veil.
give an example.
Like, for example, is Aurangzeb really cruel or not? Is Ashoka peaceful or not? And then
Right.
look into that. So yes, I do follow modern news, and I do like to look into debated topics like this.
So, Zach, tell me this. Are either of your parents very interested in history? Is this an interest you've inherited? Tell us a little bit about your family.
My No, my parents are from completely different backgrounds. My mother is was in the human resources, and my dad is from economics and leadership background. But I think because he is from a leadership background, I was able to understand more about what I liked. He taught me he taught me why you should follow your dreams and how it can help you. And it's because of that that I understood my defining moment, why the Mona Lisa can change me. I think it has impacted me, just like I said before, it has impacted me in a hidden in plain sight way.
At 10, you're a child, but you're also a significant keynote speaker. You've spoken in multiple platforms. And I was reading that one of your most appreciated and popular talks is actually the story of India and a muddy road. I know a little more, but I'll let you tell the story. So tell us the story of this muddy road and modern India.
This, in fact, is a beautiful story. When I was researching, I learned it. It begins in the Achaemenid Empire, where a muddy road called the Persian Royal Road is established to help the Persians trade throughout Asia, throughout the Middle East. And when I looked into this muddy road, I found out that it was established actually before these Persians in 500 BC by the Assyrians in 900 BC. And the rest is, it works like magic. After Alexander the Great conquers this Achaemenid Empire, and as he expands his conquest throughout the world, he uses this muddy road as a map for his conquest, and also uses it to trade and make sure that he has supplies. When in fact, and later on in around 100 BC, 150 BC, the Han Emperor, the Han Dynasty is a empire in China, and the Emperor of the Han Dynasty, in fact, tries to search for alliances throughout throughout the world. And this is when his ambassador tells him that there is an existing trade road in Persia, and if he can connect that to China, he can get the best trades. And this is when the to Chinese connect this trade road to Persia to make the Silk Road. And then,
Fascinating.
yes, as we look into 1453 AD, the Ottomans destroy in the battle in the siege of Constantinople. The Ottomans are able to defeat Constantinople only because of gunpowder. And gunpowder, yes,
No, go ahead.
and gunpowder reaches the Ottomans through the Silk Road again, because gunpowder is invented in China, and thus it reaches the Ottomans through the Silk Road. Now, when the Ottomans defeat Constantinople, they block up Constantinople, which at that time is a key area which you need to pass through to trade with China and India. And because this trade area is no more there, they had no option, but most empires and civilizations had to send out explorers like Vasco da Gama.
Yes.
And this starts the age of exploration. Vasco da Gama finds a new route to India, and this is the same route which the British get here through. And now another connection can be through the Mughal Empire, because Babur defeats Ibrahim Lodi. Babur, who's the emperor of the Mughal Empire, defeats Ibrahim Lodi, the ruler of India, again using gunpowder. So, this is the beautiful magic of history. A muddy road in ancient Assyria soon becomes the muddy road in the Achaemenid Empire. It helps Alexander the Great with his conquest. It helps the Ottomans defeat Constantinople. And then the British, then back to the Mughals before the British. That is the magic.
How I wish I'd been taught history like you're telling it now, instead of the way we learnt it, only to forget it soon after. Uh, are you sure professionally that you're going to be a historian, or do you have some other dreams as well?
Well, my dream is I think that I'm fixed on being a historian, but I also know that life can take me through different paths, and I know that I just wish there could be a time machine, but I know that there isn't. So
So,
I'm not.
so
Yes.
yeah. What does this 10-year-old genius do when he's not studying history or writing about it? What do you do in regular hours?
Well, just because I'm attending an interview doesn't mean I'm a genius. I'm still a kid. I spend my time playing football. And in fact, because my friends after COVID are so interested in playing games, I have together started coding games with them, started playing online games with them, and yeah, I love football and I love playing with my friends. Yeah.
So, Zach, here's my question in the end. Which is the historical figure that you most admire? And you can't say the Mona Lisa from, as a figure from history. You have to give
Yeah.
me a name of somebody who you say you most admire, and who is the historical figure that you think, I don't want to use the word despise, but who's the most unlikable figure of history to you so far?
One person I find as my biggest inspiration is Alexander the Great. And what I find interesting is that in 12 years, from the age of 20 to 32, he establishes one of history's, at that point of time, the largest empire and one of history's most important empires. And the reason I like him so much is not just because he was able to conquer so much and make so much, but also because of how he promoted knowledge. Okay, Alexander the Great, during his invasions, spread what is called Hellenism or the Greek values, and this includes democracy. So, the reason that we are here today in a democratic country itself in India is because of Alexander the Great. And another thing I find beautiful about him is that he not only carried soldiers in his army, but also cartographers, and my favorite, historians.
And
In fact,
that's a great answer. And in fact,
in fact, Ptolemy, who would later inherit Egypt from Alexander the Great's empire, was supposed to be the historian and the biographer inside Alexander's empire. And that I find beautiful.
and is there a character when you were reading about, how when we are young and we have these sort of phobias about characters because they seem scary, or like, oh my God, was there someone you didn't like, who you just wanted to shut the door on because it gave you the creeps?
So, in the beginning, when I saw all this cruelty which is done by people like Genghis Khan or Timur, I initially found started feeling very scared about it. But as I went more into depth into the research on these figures, I found out that it's also because of their time. And at that period of time, what they were doing is not actually a big deal. So I stopped getting scared of them. But I think, yes, I think I don't really have anyone I'm scared of in history. Whatever you
So
do during that time can be justified.
it's all contextual. All of history as we inherit it can't be decontextualized, as they say. Finally, which historical figure would you most like to meet if you did have that time machine?
Hmm. I think for sure it would be Hegel, who I have spoken about before. Hegel, in fact, is an amazing man. I would like to have a hot chocolate with him by the fireside and talk about both our interests, why we think history is important. And I would like to exchange some ideas with him on how he thinks I can make history more fun. And maybe
Hot
I can.
chocolate. Hot chocolate with Hegel should be your next keynote. I think that should be the name of it. Well, Zach, I'm definitely going to pick up both of your books. If you haven't read them yet, do pick up Zach Sangeet's two best-selling books, The History of the World in 3 points. There, he's got them in his hand, and you can. We'll put a link in the description below where you can pick up and order your copies as well. Zach, take care. I hope you have a good game of football, because every historian needs her or his respite and to just hang out with their friends as well. Great talking to you. And I hope that whatever else you do in life, teaching and storytelling is a big part of it. Because if you have extraordinary knowledge and research, and you have a friendly way of making it accessible to a larger number of people, that I think is the biggest public service. Thank you, Zach. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.